a pen, the first thing that you really want to do is make sure the fit and the finish is proper with it. In other words, give something to someone or sell something to someone that you would be proud to carry yourself. All right, that's the first thing. If you have a pen that you like, all right, that you've made, wear it, show it to people, take it out and actually have it in your pocket. I can't tell you how many times I go to a meeting and I ask somebody for a pen, that's a pen maker, and they say, I don't have one of my own. And it's so frustrating to me because if you're proud of your work, show it. Show somebody that you've made this. And I can't tell you how many times I've been somewhere that I pulled out a pen and they said, where'd you get that pen? I said, I made it. And the first question or the first comment is, you made that? And I said, yeah, I made that. And then that leads to a whole different discussion. And then honestly, I've sold people pens that I've made at a Marriott hotel that were checking me in. Everybody will say, well, I want to put a website together and do it. Well, that's great, okay? Websites work, okay? They don't work well for me, all right? I do much better when people see my pens in person. You cannot see all the detail in this pen, all right, unless you're on top of it. And even a good picture is not going to show you what it's like. When you put it in someone's hand and they write with it, it makes a big difference. And that's what makes the shows more successful than the website for me. When someone puts my pen in their hand and they can write with it and they can feel that, and the first thing when they touch it to the paper and I hear a little ooh, I know I've got them. All right, so where do you start? Well, you can go on the internet, and the internet has a great number of sources. If you just put in local craft shows will pop up, and you have got a myriad of different titles of different shows that you can attend, okay? However, I don't really like to go to a show that I've never, attended, number one, to see what the attendance is. And two, if I'm going to travel some, 2-3 hours away from my house, I want to make sure that it's worth my time. However, I don't really like to go to a show that I've never, attended, number one, to see what the attendance is. And two, if I'm going to travel some, 2-3 hours away from my house, I want to make sure that it's worth my time. So what I'll do is I'll either call the promoter and ask them, what they're doing or what the attendance is like. Now, you have to watch out for these guys because what they're doing is they're selling a space. They don't care who they sell it to, they just want to fill up a space. So if you can go to a show and check it out yourself personally and find out, and I talk to vendors, I say, listen, I make pens, I'm thinking about coming to this show, how has it been for you? And most of them will honestly tell you what it's like, what the cost was, if you need to stay at a hotel, if you're local or whatever, okay? And once you find those things out, walk around, see if people are spending money. Because there's no sense in getting a space and finding it there and then, whoop, you're not going to do anything with it. So really do your homework on a different show that you want to attend. One question I get a lot is, you go to a show and there's 2 other pen makers there. Well, first of all, to me, when I apply for a show, I ask them how many other pen makers they're going to be. And if they tell me that there's 2 or 3 already, I don't even bother because I know that person is not interested in me as a client. They're just interested in filling a booth space. So those shows I don't go to. Now, shows in general, okay, you can have a juried show and a non-juried show. So what do I mean by each? Well, a non-juried show is basically like a flea market or something like that, where all they're going to do is take your money for a table and you're on your own. I don't go to those shows because, people are going to walk up and they're going to look at your pens and they're going to say, that's too expensive for me, or why do I have to pay that much money for a pen? So I kind of avoid those shows. The ones that I want to go to are the ones that have paid attendance, that people have to pay to get in, or even, well, unless you have a street fair that they're telling you that they've got 15,000 people coming to it, okay? And again, That's type of an outdoor type thing. You're not going to have electricity, all right, on most cases. So make sure that your setup is bright and airy and that you can see different things. Now again, the juried shows are going to be costing you a lot more, all right? Anywhere from, I'd say from $300 up to $1,000 for a 10 by 10 booth. The outdoor shows, probably a little less, maybe 300 to about 700 or so. So that's what you're going to have to think about spending to get into some of the shows, to sell your pens. How do you want to set the booth up that you have? Is it an outdoor show? Is it an indoor show? Do they give you electricity, or not? Most of the outdoor shows, you're not going to have electricity, and you're going to have a 10 by 10 booth, a pop-up. You're going to need weights for your legs of your tent, because they all require that now. All right. So think about how you want to lay it out. Now, on any of the shows that I do, I always make sure that I have a floor of some sort, and it's usually I'll go and I'll buy the foam tiles and lay out the floor, because I don't want my pens all of a sudden, dropping on the ground and get wrecked. Okay, so I make sure that I have a nice soft cushion on the bottom, that if something does fall. All right. Now the second thing is, how do you want to set it up? A lot of people will just take a couple tables, throw a drape over it, okay, and lay the pens out, in a little folder or something. That may work fine for not a craft show, but it may work fine for any kind of flea market or anything like that, okay? So think about where you're going to be. If you're going to go into a nice show that requires a tent, all right, and you're going to need to have a nice setup. So what I've done here is what I think is a decent setup for you, and it's easy to make. These are like little stair steps, okay? And you can lay out your pens on that, and they're visible for people. They're not looking, down at pens that you have, laid out on a tabletop, all right? This is more up to eye level, and it just makes a better presentation. We'll talk about the boxes, and we'll talk about a few other things later, but for now, you just want to make sure that your booth is very presentable. Make sure your signage is clear, that they can see your name, all right? Have business cards ready. Have all these things ready and available, for that type of a show. These are some of my pens that I've just, I brought a few to lay out here. When I do a show like this, I usually have 2 or 3 of these stations set up along a 6-foot table, so I can hold close to 100 pens in boxes ready to go. Then that's on one wall. On another wall, I may have a little different setup where I'll have, not stair steps up. I may have acrylic stands that are stair stepped, and I'll have them sitting on those, because I want to make sure that people can see the work and see what it is. You're going to need lights, and lighting is key. I can't tell you, lighting is key to making your pens pop. Now, if you look at the pens that I have out here on display, I've got these lights, and you can pick up these, reasonably inexpensive off the website. They just plug in and they work, okay? Now, if I unplug these, and I'm going to unplug them just to show you what they look like, what this looks like without it. Now, we've got lights on these on the side as well, but you can see how dark they become right away, all right? I have people that when I do my shows, I have other vendors come up and put their pens underneath my show or underneath my lights, just so people can see, what they look like and how they sparkle. So, lighting is key, and you have to have decent lighting. One thing that I do that I've always done is when I price my pens, because people always ask about price, where do I go with pricing? I don't know how to price it. Well, the idea behind pricing a pen is, think about how much time you have in it, how much overhead you have, okay, your lathe, your tools, all those things. And I love to hear this when I go to shows sometimes. I'll see somebody selling a pen there, like a bolt action pen, and they'll have a piece of wood on it, and they'll sell it for $25. And I say to him, now it doesn't have a box, but they sell it for $25. And I say to him, how can you sell that for $25? He says, well, I only pay $14 or $15 for the kit. I said, well, what about the wood? Oh, a friend of mine cut a tree down. I just go over and get that. I said, well, how about the time that it took you to go get that wood? Well, I'm retired. I'm just doing this for fun. Okay? People like that drive me crazy because they're bringing the cost of my pens down. Okay? And I don't like that at all. So, let them knock themselves out, but it's really not going to help anybody. You price it to what you want to make on it. I sell this for $125, and I'm not ashamed of it. Okay? And I get it. And one thing that I do routinely is I have at least one pen that is so overpriced and so outrageous that, people will say, why do I have to spend $1,000 for a pen? And I tell them, well, you don't have to. Here's another one for $200 or whatever. So if you have something that's very, very high priced, then the other pens don't look so expensive. And so I always do that, have at least some piece of pen like that. Usually I try and bring 2 and 3 of everything, but you never know what's going to happen. I had an attorney walk into one of my shows one time, and I usually have an attorney pen. I didn't bring it this time, a Scales of Justice, and he wanted 10 of them for his staff. And unfortunately, I only had 3. So I said, but I do have more back at my house. I said, so I can get them for you. So I mean, you can always judge somebody or tell somebody I can pull more from here or pull more from there. But I usually try and take 2 or 3 of everything. That way I have a backup of something. One thing that you can do to really make some money with this is that you can have pens, but you can have some other items as well there too. You can have some bottle stoppers. You can have other things, some pepper grinders, things like that will help offset some of the pens as well. So I call that table money. So you have your little things. You have and you make them out of your pieces your end cuts. All those things that you can make with smaller items. Really do, and they sell well. That you can make up table money. In other words, you can pay for your booth half the time with some of those items. When I do my pens, when I make my pens, I try and think of who the clientele is going to be. In other words, there's a really neat fireman pen. Okay, so what do I want to do with a fireman pen? Well, I want to put the fireman logo on it somewhere. So I want to tailor it to that particular person. And I try and match them as best as I can. I mean, I look at the colors of different things and say, what would that look nice with? Like when you've got these colors in here for the dragon pen, you've got the copperish color here. I wouldn't put that on a pewter pen. That's just my own personal taste. So you try and match things to go with the plating that you're going to use, or whatever that it happens to be. So I try and match, like I said, I try and match them together, make sure the boxes look good with it, and it's a whole presentation, and people buy as a gift. Okay, most of the pens that I sell are not sold to the individual themselves. They're buying it for somebody as a gift. Occasionally, yes, they'll buy something and say, I really like that pen, and they'll go with it. But most of the time, they'll buy it as a gift, and that's what it's about. Should I take my lathe and be a demonstrator? That's the only way I'm going to get in. Well, if that's the only way you're going to get into a show, then yes. But me personally, I don't like to do that, because I get people that are focused on me turning that pen, okay, and they're not looking at everything else, okay? Or what they'll do is they'll clog up the whole aisle because people are coming by and they're stopping, they're slamming into them because they're looking at you turning, okay? And then when it's all done, they say, wasn't that interesting, Frank? Yes, and they walk past. So I don't really like to do, demos. if I do anything at all, and I do this, is I have pictures, snapshots of different phases of it. I'll have pictures of my hands, with my skew, shaving something. I'll have pictures of the Stars and Stripes pen, putting the stars in, okay, all 50 of those. I'll give them some detail shots that they can see that these are really handmade, which is important, okay? So they can get the same idea rather than me sit there and demonstrating. Plus, that's a whole other object. You gotta bring your lathe, you gotta schlep all that stuff to the show and set it all up, and it's just, to me, it's not worth it. One of the first things is obviously the money objection is, why is your pen so expensive? Well, number one, it's handmade. You're at a craft show, all right? All these people have made these pens. This is all handmade. This is not a 19-cent Bic you can buy at Staples or Office Max, okay? There's quality to this. Everything in it is handmade that I've done, all right? I've inlaid all these pieces. I've turned this. I've polished it. I've done all those things. I said, so, it's worth the difference. I mean, feel the weight of the pen. All those things make a difference when somebody, is trying to tell you, oh, I'm not paying that much for it. Or the other thing is they'll tell you, why should I buy your pen when I can steal them from the bank for free? Well, if somebody has that attitude coming in my booth, I just don't even really talk to them. I just tell them, well, thank you very much. And I just smile at them and let them walk out because they're not going to buy your pen anyway. So why waste your time convincing them? And I say, here, try to write with it. Oh, I don't want to do that. If I get it in their hand, 9 chances out of 10, they're going to buy it because, number one, they're interested. Number two, they like the way it feels. Do not do this. I just cannot tell you how many vendors sit there and look at their phones, okay? Or sit there and read a book. Be engaged with these people as they walk in the booth. Acknowledge them. Hi, how you doing today? Okay. Oh, I like that. I like this, whatever. Be nice to them, okay? And build some rapport with them immediately. Don't just sit there on your phone looking at it and ignoring them, and waiting for them to say, hey, what's this about? I tell them a story about every pen. I tell them everything about it. With my watch pens, every piece is made. This is a real genuine dial, a real Rolex dial. All these watch pieces I've taken from other recycled watches. I go to flea markets and buy them and then take them apart and involve them in a story. And you're much more, likely to have a successful outcome. He's got that same pen over there, and it's $50 less. Why should I buy from you? And I say, well, and I say, did you write with that pen? No. Okay. Did you actually, pick it up and look at it, or did you just look at the price? And he's, well, I just looked at the price. I said, well, do me a favor. Go back, pick the pen up. Look at the fit on it. What I mean by the fit is, when you take your fingers and you slide it over here, is there a bump on one side or does it feel smooth all the way around? I said, look at the finish of it. Are there any scratches in it? Hold it in different light to see if there's any scratches. Okay. What is the material that it's made from? All right. Is it what kind of wood or acrylic or what exactly, are you comparing it to? I said, then come back and tell me about it. I said, does it come in a box or are they just giving it to you in a pouch or are they just giving it to you? That's what I try and get from, a client to see exactly what's going to happen with it. And eventually they'll come back and they'll buy my pen once they really look at the quality of it. One of the big ones are my watch pieces. I'll ask, there's somebody, oh, he's got it for $100 less. I said, okay, fine. I said, how many pieces does he have on the watch piece? Well, I don't really care. I said, does he have hands on it? Well, I don't know. I said, what kind of what kind of dial does he have? Is it a genuine dial? Well, I don't know. I said, is the pen signed like this one is? I said, so those are some of the things that I try and draw out of people to make a difference in my product and someone else's, especially if there's another person there. And usually, like I said, they'll come back and they'll buy it. One thing that I do, and I routinely tell people that, I guarantee my work. If they're not happy with it, they take it home, they write with it, they feel that the ink doesn't flow right or whatever, I tell them, send it back to me. I'll make it right for you. And I've always done that. And I get repeat sales from that because people know they can trust me. They know that I'm going to, take care of their issues. I've even taken care of people's pens that I didn't even sell them. I've fixed them for them, and I've really had them come back to me the following year and buy a pen from me just because I helped them out. So, and it doesn't take that much to help somebody out. A refill. I get that a lot. They'll come in the booth and say, I can't find a refill for this pen, and it's a standard Parker refill. I've got tons of those. So I say, here, and I give them one. Oh, really? Thank you. And then, that leads to a sale eventually. So, always, customer service is a top priority for me. I've always taken care of people. So if you have a chance, go out of the way and do something nice for someone, and I guarantee you, it'll come back to you in spades.